The morning of July 4th, 1975, found me wrapped in my Spider-Man sheets. I was rerunning a favorite dream I had about playing a little pepper with Hank Aaron and Brooks Robinson when my mom woke me up. "Rise and shine, honey. You're playing the Tigers today." My father looked down at my fielder's glove at the breakfast table. "Who are you playing?" he asked. "The Tigers, and they're going to kill us. They've got Randy Cullen pitching today." "Randy," my mother interrupted. "Isn't he that boy that keeps accidentally beaning batters?" "He doesn't do it on accident, Mom." "Wait a minute," my dad said. "Is Randy Cullen Ted Cullen's little boy?" "Yes, honey. Ted's coaching the Tigers this year." "Ted Cullen is coaching Little League baseball?" "That's what I just said, sweetheart." "The man's a psychopath. He ought to be in prison." "He has been, twice." "And now he's letting his son throw baseballs at kids." "Oh, he tells him to do it, Dad." "What?" "Oh, yeah. He signals Randy from the dugout. He tugs at his left ear, and then he tips his cap, and the next thing you know, the batter's limping to first base." "I don't believe it." "It's true, Dad. He broke Billy Meyer's collarbone. He gave Mike Sullivan a compound fracture of the wrist. And last week, he had Chris Taylor in the head so hard that it broke his helmet in half, and now he can't do fractions anymore." "Oh, that reminds me. Take this bundt cake over to that poor boy's mother on your way to the game. Are his ears still ringing?" "No, but he's still slobbering all over himself, and his eyes keep rolling back in his head every time he thinks he smells bacon, which is every 5 minutes. Look, I'm just going to leave the cake on their front porch and run away, okay? As long as you're polite." "Hey, good luck at the game," my father yelled as I headed out the screen door. "And don't crowd the plate." When I got to the field, Coach Linwood told me that he needed me to pitch that day. "I thought Troy Simmons was going to start." "Well, he was," the coach said, "but yesterday his dad was trying to show him how to throw a decent curve, and, well, I guess he got a little excited and pulled Troy's arm out of the socket." "Well, can't Sean Wilson pitch?" "Sean ran into the left field fence at practice Thursday. Don't you remember? He was unconscious for 3 hours. "Yeah, but haven't his eyes uncrossed yet?" "No, and he still thinks he's Veronica from the Archie comics. Look, you're going to have to pitch today, and that's it, all right? So here's the deal. Randy Cullen is going to wipe up the field with us if we don't do something about him. Now, the Tigers are up first, and Randy's third in their lineup, which puts you in a position to do our team a big favor." "What are you talking about, Coach?" "I'm just saying that I'm not going to kick you off the team if you happen to throw a little wild when the Cullen kid comes to bat, especially if you happen to do a little damage to his pitching arm." "Are you telling me to bean somebody, Coach?" "Hey, I'm not telling you anything. In fact, this conversation never took place. Just keep in mind that I'm the one who hands out the trophies, and if that Cullen kid is in any shape to pitch today, then you can just kiss that Most Valuable Player award goodbye. You understand?" My team took the field, and I headed for the mound. As I was throwing a few warm-up pitches, I could see Troy's father wandering out of the parking lot with 2 tall beer cans hanging from what had been a six-pack. It was clear that he had polished the others off at home because he was swaggering back and forth as he made his way to our dugout. "Hey, Linwood," he shouted as he leaned against the chain-link fence. "What's my boy doing on the bench?" "He's out of the game today, Chad. You yanked his arm out of the socket." "Well, then put him in right field. There's not much action out there." "His arm's no good, Simmons. Look at it. It's just hanging there like a big salami. He's not playing." "Well, my boy don't ride the bench." "Go sleep it off, Dad," Troy said, not bothering to turn and look at his father. "Or better yet, go get a life of your own, why don't you?" Mr. Simmons dropped one of his cans of beer. It split open and spun around, spewing foam all over the cement. "You rotten piece of scum, Linwood! You turned my boy against me!" Mr. Watkins and my father had to pull Chad off the chain-link fence and escort him away from the field. "You're a dead man, Linwood! You've coached your last game!" he screamed as he was dragged away. "Play ball," the umpire shouted. The first batter was Mickey Schultz, an easy out. He had the hand-eye coordination of a dead monkey. 3 pitches, 3 strikes, you're out. Next up was Bobby Hernandez, who I intentionally walked. Not because I was afraid he'd get a hit, but because he had a propensity for letting go of the bat when he swung. A week before, he'd let go of a 28-inch aluminum which sailed out to the mound and hit the pitcher for the Indians right in the crotch. "He'll live," the doctor told his parents. "I just wouldn't get my heart set on any grandchildren if I were you." When Randy Cullen came to the plate, instead of tensing up, I felt a wave of relief pass through me. For some reason, I felt completely at peace. It was as if somehow I knew that in a moment, in one sudden act of deliberate violence, I would have revenge for Billy and Chris and all the other little boys the Cullens had laid to waste. I gripped down hard on the cowhide cover of the ball. I kicked the sky, wound back, and with a whip-like lash of my arm, I sent the ball hurling through space. I put it right down the center of the strike zone. Randy swung hard and fast. There was a crack of timber. The ball sizzled as it left his bat and zinged straight toward the Tiger's dugout, where it smashed into his father's face. You could hear the cartilage in his nose explode as he spun around, spurting blood across the white and orange uniforms of his players. He grabbed his face, howling in agony as he fell down into the dirt, and a flurry of people rushed around to help him. But his son Randy just stayed there at the plate. He casually knocked some dirt from his cleats and then leaned against his bat, waiting for the game to resume. Then he looked up at me, and he smiled. I don't remember if I smiled back because at that very moment I heard a terrible crashing sound behind me. I turned around to see a 1968 Ford station wagon come bursting through the center field fence. It was headed straight for our dugout. Chad Simmons was at the wheel. "My boys don't ride the bench, Linwood," he was shouting as he drove over second base. The car was barreling right towards Coach Linwood, who jumped out of the way an instant before the huge vehicle plunged through the dugout fence, taking the bench and some red, white, and blue bunting with it. The car crashed into the bleachers, sending people flying in every direction. A cardboard box marked "Fireworks" toppled over onto the barbecue grill. The station wagon continued on until it flipped over into a ditch behind the bleachers. Chad climbed out the passenger window of the car. "I'm all right. I'm okay," he announced, as if anybody cared. The box of fireworks went up in a puff of white smoke. Everybody ran for their lives as sparklers and Roman candles went whizzing through the air. I tried to run to my parents, but a bottle rocket caught me under my right eye, knocking me down flat. Somebody turned on the sprinklers to keep the field from catching on fire, but it only added to the confusion. People were slipping and sliding around on the wet grass, trying to get their children to safety. My father leapt over the fallen fence and through the smoke, with my mom right behind him. He picked me up, and with me over his left shoulder and my mother under his right arm, we headed for cover behind some trees in the distance. There we huddled together and watched the announcing booth burn to the ground. So at the end of the first inning, the score remained the same. No hits, no runs, 21 wounded. The next day, things were kind of quiet at the breakfast table. I was wearing a patch over my right eye, which I actually thought was pretty cool. In fact, I talked like a pirate for 2 weeks. "Are you, matey? You want to be passing me the sugar?" My father passed the sugar bowl and said, "Well, I guess that's the end of baseball season, huh?" "Oh, you're right there, me bucko. In fact, they're thinking about canceling the whole blasted league indefinitely. Arr." "Well, that's a shame, isn't it, honey?" Mom didn't answer. She just grunted, as she scooped some more hash browns onto his plate. "Yeah, darn shame," he continued. "Kids need to get out in the fresh air and play with their friends. Hey, how do you think he'd look in a soccer uniform?" "I'm just asking a question. You don't have to stare at me like that. And why are you pouring my breakfast into the sink?"